Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt.
Tim Walz, I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be a pathologist.
Picture this. Tim Walz thinks he's playing a smart game like chess. But Lindy Li just flipped the board, grabbed the queen, and started playing her own game like it's nothing. This isn't politics anymore. It's a roast, a breakdown, and a twist. If you thought Walz had his secrets locked up tight, think again. Lindy Li walked in with the keys, a flashlight, and popcorn in hand. Buckle up, because things are about to get wild.
These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We have in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just lying with him.
If you're enjoying this, hit the subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Tim Walz was rolling toward 2025, fully confident his calm, Midwestern nice guy image couldn't be touched. He was political comfort food, simple, familiar, and safe. Then Lindy Li showed up. She didn't knock politely on that polished image. She smashed straight through it with sarcasm sharp enough to cut. All of a sudden, the governor's spotless reputation didn't look warm and comforting anymore. It looked like leftovers forgotten in the fridge. Soft, questionable, and getting worse by the minute.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it's just so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president. Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and trans insanity.
Walz's whole image has always been one big act. The calm, steady leader telling everyone everything is under control, even while the house is burning behind him. He's the kind of guy who smiles, pats your shoulder, and says, "Don't worry, I've got this." Right as the Wi-Fi dies, the fridge stops working, and a raccoon sets your garage on fire. On the surface, it's smooth reassurance. Underneath, it's pure chaos. That's the illusion Lindy Li just broke. And now, no one can look away as the mess plays out.
What were they telling your mom? And how soon was it? After the election? Like,
a week or two. When it wasn't at that point, I was just asking questions. Like, it wasn't even, I was like, what happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah? Like, legitimate questions that needed to be answered. But the amount of hate I got for that was just overwhelming. And the final straw, the moment that I knew that I needed to leave, was actually around Christmas.
To really understand the roast, you have to see the costume Walz built for himself. He put his image together like a political IKEA shelf. Simple, practical, and just strong enough to hold a few family photos. But look too closely, and the whole thing starts to shake. He's the teacher turned politician, the friendly neighbor you'd trust to water your plants, the dad joke guy who also runs the National Guard. On paper, it sounds perfect. In real life, it's the kind of setup that falls apart once you realize the screws don't match and the wood is cheap particle board. And this time, the person who noticed was Lindy Li.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, well, I thought the rules stipulated, or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything.
But
so
Lindy,
he was counting on the fact that no one was going to push back.
Are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight, and we had a live focus group.
She looked at Walz's record and basically said, "Nice mask, what's underneath?" And after that, the receipts started flying. While Walz sold himself as the calm hand on the wheel, the car kept swerving like a teenager learning stick shift. His COVID policies were pure confusion. Shut it down, open it up, lock it again, then act surprised when everyone is lost. He called himself pragmatic, but his idea of strategy looked more like flipping a coin and calling it leadership. And crime? That's another story. Walz tried to dance between reform and law and order until he tripped over his own contradictions. While he clung to talking points, the headlines told a very different story, one that didn't match his bedtime version of steady leadership. What made Lindy's takedown so effective is that she didn't stop at pointing out flaws. She layered on sarcasm like hot sauce, exposing hypocrisy you couldn't unsee. Walz claimed the moral high ground while staying cozy with insiders. He might as well have been part of the furniture at DC cocktail parties. He brands himself as grassroots, but you'd need a telescope to find those roots buried under all that establishment shine.
Highest rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we have, border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Lindy didn't just poke holes in Walz's story. She tore it apart like Swiss cheese. She reminded everyone that polishing your image doesn't erase the messy choices behind it. What makes this hit so hard isn't just that Walz seems inconsistent. It's that his everyman teacher vibe now feels more like a costume than the real thing. It's like finding out your favorite indie band was actually made in a boardroom to sell to suburban shoppers. That's Walz, the Target brand candidate. And now that he's in the national spotlight as Harris's VP pick, the scrutiny isn't just intense, it's blinding. Every flaw that could be overlooked in Minnesota is now front-page news. Lindy Li is out there holding up a neon sign that says, "Look at this." If Walz hoped to coast on his cardigan charm, that dream is gone. She didn't just share facts, she made them hurt. In politics, nothing sticks longer than a sting that lands. Now his team is trapped. Ignore it or respond, and either choice could blow up. Ignoring Lindy is like ignoring a fire alarm. You can pretend it's not ringing, that everyone else is sprinting for the exits.
It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life.
Addressing this is even trickier, because stepping into Lindy's arena means walking straight into a storm of sarcasm, and you're already bleeding. But here's the twist. It's not just about Walz anymore. It's about a whole political system built on controlling your image. And Walz just happens to be the latest face caught mid-costume change. Lindy Li is the commentator gleefully pointing out that the emperor's new clothes don't fit. That's why this hits harder than your typical critique. One viral roast opens the floodgates, and suddenly journalists, rivals, and online detectives are digging through Walz's record like it's a mystery novel. Once someone says, "Hey, there's a crack," everyone wants to see how deep it goes. Exposure doesn't stop at one post, it spreads. Now Walz is trying to act like the calm co-pilot for Harris's campaign, while the internet jokes that his steady hand looks more like it's shaking a martini in an earthquake. Lindy lit the match, and now everyone's watching to see how big the fire gets. Meanwhile, the spin doctors are scrambling like chefs who forgot to preheat the oven. And honestly, it's a spectacle you can't take your eyes off.
Feedback. I want to take you back to the very first answer that he gave. Let's just remind ourselves, he sort of stumbled through. Right now, the crisis in the Middle East is, front and center of the global news agenda. And we would expect maybe that someone who was running to be the vice president would have more confidence. Let's remind ourselves of what happened.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Walz's team now has to figure out whether to double down on that cozy cardigan charm or just pretend nothing's happening. But spoiler alert, neither option works. When Lindy Li roasts you, it's not a debate, it's a full-blown barbecue, and the smoke sticks around. The first defense is always, it's out of context, because everything seems out of context these days. Walz could trip over a garden hose, and someone would spin it as an inspiring leap. But once people notice the pattern, no number of statements can patch it up. The media reaction split fast. Some outlets still treat Walz like the lovable Midwestern uncle who brings hot dish to the potluck, brushing off Lindy's takedown as just another spicy post. But others smell blood in the water, and nothing draws clicks like political blood. Suddenly, every small compromise and contradiction from Walz's past becomes headline gold. What once stayed in state-level footnotes is now national news, complete with dramatic music fit for a true crime documentary.
What do you think happened when he gave that answer, Lindy?
Well, as I mentioned before, J.D. Vance went to Yale Law School. He is seasoned, and I said this in the previous interview. This is what he does. He's slick and he's sharp, but Walz is a fundamentally good guy. And our focus group of battleground voters, mind you, understand that. They perceive that this is a down-to-earth guy, salt-to-the-earth guy who wants the best for the American people versus Vance, who is backed by Peter Thiel and was a venture capitalist and is working for his billionaire crony.
Walz isn't used to this kind of spotlight. It's a completely new battlefield. He's been coasting in the state-level sandbox where people forgive a little chaos as long as you smile and wave. But the national stage is brutal. Every shoelace, every word, and every photo gets checked under a microscope. You can't get by with just a calm tone and a fishing joke anymore. Now, thanks to Lindy, the lens is crystal clear. To everyday viewers, the irony is obvious. Walz, the man of the people, suddenly looks more like the man of the script. His political persona feels over-rehearsed, constantly tweaked for ratings, with timing that's off. Years ago, he might have patched this with a few photo ops and an op-ed about unity. But in this heated election cycle, every move is analyzed like a frog in biology class. Voters aren't looking for leaders who will grow into the role. They want consistency right now.
I mean, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1.018 billion, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible.
And Lindy Li just showed how fragile Walz's consistency really is. About as strong as a paper straw in a hurricane. Social media turned her takedown into a meme factory overnight, with clips labeled things like Walz's speedrun of hypocrisy. When your image says Midwestern nice, but your record screams Midwestern chaos, the internet doesn't just reveal it, it blasts it everywhere. Walz is learning the hard way. Once the online crowd decides you're the punchline, reclaiming the narrative is almost impossible. But beyond the laughs, this matters, because politics runs on trust. Whether real or just marketing, Walz's appeal depends on that steady, trustworthy neighbor image. Lindy tore that illusion apart, showing that his authenticity was more costume than character. Once voters see the zipper on the mascot suit, good luck convincing them it's a real bear. And while other politicians have faced exposure before, the timing and messenger here make it different. Lindy doesn't just critique, she entertains. And that's what makes it lethal.
Millions of that. I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, like, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like...
That's what makes Lindy's approach so dangerous. In today's media world, no one shares boring critiques anymore. People spread the roasts, the sarcasm, and the clips that make them laugh, while nodding in agreement. That's how narratives explode, entertainment disguised as accountability. Meanwhile, Walz's opponents are quietly popping champagne. In politics, the worst hits don't come from rivals, it's when someone outside the game exposes you, because that feels real, and it sticks. Now the Harris campaign is sweating. A VP pick is supposed to bring calm, not chaos. Walz was meant to be the reliable co-pilot, the guy who wouldn't rattle moderates or outshine the lead. Instead, he looks shaky. Instead of reassuring, he comes off rehearsed. And that's political poison in a race where every attack ad is being sharpened like a medieval sword. What's wild is how fast the narrative flipped. Before Lindy's expose, Walz was barely on the national radar, a background extra you'd Google once and forget 5 minutes later.
What's your take?
My take is the most neglected part of home ownership is the gutters. It's personal for me.
This is Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz making an appearance on the popular TikTok show Subway Takes.
Had problems with gutters before. You get your basement wet, you get ice dams, cause a lot of problems.
How often do you like looking at gutters?
I look quite often, surprisingly, because
Like
I kind
you
of judge
inspect
it.
it.
You know, I try not to be judgmental on people, but when I see a well-tended gutter, it says a lot about something.
But now he's front page news, not for his policies, but for his contradictions. It's the political version of being remembered not for your big movie role, but for tripping on the red carpet. Memorable, yes, but for all the wrong reasons. And the more Walz tries to brush it off, the worse it gets. Shrugging looks like admitting guilt. Smiling through it feels fake. Addressing it only keeps the story alive. It's a no-win situation. Walz built his brand on being this steady, authentic leader. But Lindy just pulled back the curtain, showing how manufactured that image really is. It's like finding out your organic label was slapped on the same factory-made product as the cheap stuff. Once people see it, they can't unsee it. And the almost poetic part, Walz's downfall isn't from scandal or corruption, it's from exposure. His brand is collapsing under the wake of its own contradictions. A slow-motion unraveling, death by 1,000 sarcastic cuts, each one spreading across social media, until his carefully built image finally falls apart.